if you were to describe Ted the human in 3 words, what would the 3 words be? Hi, Ted.
Hey,
Thank
how are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. So you've been in India for 12 hours now?
About 12 hours.
How does it feel?
I love coming to India so much. And I never get enough time here. Usually I come and they've got me working and grinding me out and then shoot me back in the sky. But I love the energy of India.
What have you done so far today?
Today I came in, I met with the ministers and I went to the Waves conference and spoke on stage and was interviewed.
Do you have a favorite creator in India?
That's like, we work with so many, it'd be like picking your kids, but picking your favorite child almost. But I have to tell you, early in coming to India, I met Shah Rukh Khan right away, early. And he hosted a very nice little dinner for me and we just hit it off immediately. And I've come back since with my wife and we've had a nice times together. We visited with each other in Los Angeles when his son was in school. So we got to go out to dinner. So having dinner with Shah Rukh Khan in India is much different than having dinner with him in Los Angeles. But so I would say, that's probably someone I know the most and really enjoy working with.
So you've been at Netflix forever.
25 years. This just recently past my 25th year anniversary.
I have watched a lot of your interviews, probably most of them.
Sorry.
I know Read a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we're in the Gates Pledge together. So we have one offsite we do every year, which Gates organizes. And funnily enough, me and him did a speaking session last year, not on camera.
Yeah.
And I was asking him a bunch of questions on a lot of the same stuff, like where is content, the media space today, and where will it be at tomorrow? And I've been reading about the story of Netflix and how many pivots you've had from starting off one way to becoming another thing, to becoming another thing, and maybe you're another thing tomorrow altogether again. Would you like to tell me the story in your words? You've been there almost from the beginning.
I met Reed in 1999, October of 1999. And I was in the home video business for many years before. I knew of Netflix because I bought a DVD player and I opened up the box and there was a card in there to join this thing called Netflix and you could rent DVDs through the mail. Not subscription yet. It was back, you just rent them one at a time.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's clever. I thought, and I never really thought about it again much. And then a friend of mine who I knew through the home video distribution was working at Netflix and Reed was the business was growing. They needed more inventory all the time. They had burned through all the cash. And basically the company at the time was buying all the DVDs from Walmart and Best Buy and that kind of thing. And he really was trying to figure out just how the distribution system worked. So this guy, Mitch, said, this guy, Ted, he just did a deal with the studios where you could do revenue share, where you don't pay for the movies. You just pay every time they rent. And Reed goes, we should talk to him. So he introduced us and I did.
What year was this?
This was 1999. And I was working for a company called West Coast Video at the time, which is like a smaller version of Hollywood or Blockbuster Video, and I did these deals for the same reason Netflix needed them. We had no cash. My business was very bad. And I did what was my first e-commerce transaction of any kind, which was I went and bought an airline ticket to fly to San Jose to go meet Reed. And there was a kind of a warehouse, of an office. And I went in and met with him. There was very few people in there at the time. And he laid out his vision for Netflix, which was almost exactly like it is right now. It would be all digital. There would be no, the DVD through the mail thing was just, that's the cheapest way to move bits from here to there right now. Takes a couple of days, but it's very cheap. And pretty soon the internet will be almost free to distribute on, and we'll move very fast, and we'll be able to do all this. That we talked about it downloading instead of streaming at the time, because that's streaming. It didn't really quite exist yet. But it would be global, because the internet would enable global distribution in ways that physical media could never do. And it sounded a little crazy to me in October of 1999, because he said that all entertainment will come into the home on the internet. This is at a time when no entertainment was coming into the home on the internet. But so, in hindsight, of course, it was very visionary. I actually just thought he was kind of maybe not fully playing with all of his marbles, maybe, because in fact I had tried to watch video on the internet before, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
And I just said I didn't see that it was going to get from point A to point B anytime soon. And he said to me, "Well, there's a thing called Moore's law. The internet's going to get twice as fast at half the price every 18 months." And that's exactly what happened. And he offered me the job to come to work at Netflix to run the purchasing and programming. And at the time, I wasn't looking for a job, so I just went back to work. And he offered me the position.
Why purchasing and programming? You had no background in that, right?
Yeah, I did at the video distribution. I ran distribution from the studios to the stores, and then at the time that I met Reed, I was at West Coast Video, where I was doing the programming, marketing, and publicity, and all the purchasing for the stores.
He's no longer active, is he? Reed,
No,
when I spoke to him last year, he was more like retirement phase.
Yeah, he just recently stepped down from executive chair to chair of our board. So he's very helpful all the time. We call him regularly for advice and input. I went up and visited him at Powder Mountain a couple of weeks ago, and I just had a board meeting with him last week. So he is an unbelievable resource. But at the time, I wasn't sure if he was a crazy person or if he was the next coming. So he kept calling though and said, you should come work here. We're going to do exciting things. And I said, look, you just got me at a bad time. And he said, why is that? And I said, I described what was happening at my current job, which was we had bought another company. They were both in very bad shape. And I was renegotiating all my deals with the studios and all these things. And he said, this is classic Reed. He goes, it sounds like they really need you there. And I go, yeah, that's what's going on, really. And he goes, well, they need you in third world countries feeding starving children. Why aren't you doing that? Well, yeah, that's true. And I started laughing, and I said, I'd take the job, because I liked him. I like that approach. So that was my beginning. And Reed had started the company with this vision to get there. And at the time, they were doing all kinds of things. They were selling movie posters, or transactional rental. When I got there, they had just started doing the subscription when I got there.
Right. So when Reed started the company with this other person, Mark Randolph. I remember reading the story about them. When he came back and took over the company as a CEO, Reed had already taken another company public.
Yeah.
And he asked Mark to step down and took over. This culture of hiring, testing people quickly, and firing either very quickly, or the ones that manage to stay in the ecosystem get paid a lot of money. It's a very different culture from many other corporations that have been built. Does that work for Netflix?
It works very well for Netflix. I feel like it was mostly because it was articulated when you came in. And Reed's vision I remember at the time I joined, including everyone who was stuffing envelopes, there was probably 175 people. And he was talking about talent density being an issue. And I go, talent density? You've got 175 people here. What are you talking about? And he goes, I know, but we're going to have tens of thousands of people, and talent density will really matter. And I didn't even understand the concept, to be honest with you.
Right.
And he said, no, he said, why do these companies, these startups that start up and they get great and then they become big fat companies and fail? Why is that? Well, the bigger you get, the further the people are working on to get away from the core mission. You get hiring people who didn't start it, it's not their passion, maybe not even their core skill. And you start building the business so you can accommodate people who are not as good as the people you started with.
Right.
And then, so you don't want chaos, so you have a bunch of rules. And then you start attracting people who like to work in places with a lot of rules. And then he said you can idiot-proof your business, but then you're going to end up with a business full of idiots. So the idea was really focus on talent density and tell everybody up front, you're going to have, this is going to be a great place to work, but the bar is going to be held very, very high. And if you can, this is not a family.
Right.
This is a sports team, a high performing sports team. He goes, you wouldn't throw your brother out.
Right.
He said, but there's no shame of getting cut from a great team. A lot of great athletes get cut from a great team, which is a good way, an interesting way to think about it. Yeah.
Is it still like that? It's the very opposite of how things work in India, because we are largely family-owned businesses. So, the father retires, the kids take over, the cousins are there, the sisters, the brothers, all of them together. I'm trying to evaluate one versus the other and see what works for one and doesn't for another.
I mean, it depends heavily on what you're doing.
Right.
So I think that what we were doing depended on an incredible amount of great execution, building things that worked and very, fixing big, hairy problems. And for engineers, you had to have an attractive enough problem for them to come solve and a big enough prize.
Right.
So if you're doing that and you know that there's going to be competitors and they're going to get good at it, you need to be better at it than they are, faster than they are. So, someone has got to be responsible for better, faster, cheaper all the time. And you have to hold everyone's, to a very high bar to do that.
Right. You were always into journalism, Ted. This is what I read, that in college you ran the newspaper, you were the editor. You wanted to be a journalist growing up?
I did. As a kid, I really admired journalists. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and there was a reporter. His name was Don Bowles, and he was doing a story about. He was covering a story about the mob in Arizona, mobsters, and he got blown up and killed in his car. And I remember that vividly. That story, even as a very young man, thinking. That's all he had to do was not write that story, and they wouldn't have killed him. And he had to write the story. And I just thought that was a level of heroics that I didn't see in other things. So I set out to be a journalist, and started writing got in the school newspaper, became the editor of the school newspaper, and then went to 2 years of community college, where I also mostly just worked on the newspaper and didn't go to class. But I realized somewhere around my second year of community college that I probably was never going to be a professional journalist. I wasn't that good. I don't know how I got that far from age 10 to 19 or so without anyone telling me that I was just an okay writer.
And what was the trigger emotion? Like the hero element of writing about something that everybody is scared to write about? Is that the hero element? Or being able to depict an event in a manner that is more comprehensible than most?
I think some version of being a real source of truth, I think, is a real commendable thing in a society.
Why is that?
Being able to tell the truth.
Is there such a thing as truth?
Yeah.
Everything is an interpretation from one lens or another, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that you two people can watch the same event and see two different things, but something happened. And you can explore it from multiple angles, but what you can't do is say that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up, went to college, worked in the school newspaper, started working at a rental store, met Reed, started at Netflix.
Yeah. It's funny, when the rental store was my first job. So when I was going to school, I was working at the video store part-time. That was my part-time job. I had to pay my own way through school. And the guy I met in the store, it was like a serendipitous thing. My mom, I thought we were poor. Like I always think that I thought because we lived poorly. We had our utilities would get turned off all the time. So if we had the electricity on, we didn't have the water. If the water was off, the phone was off, or one of these things. But my mom always had these like luxury things. So she was just bad with money. We weren't that poor really. But she bought the first person I know who bought a VCR. And there was no reason to even own a VCR yet. There weren't video stores yet. So
Are you the opposite of that? Are you a frugal person when it comes to family?
I think when it comes to family?
Yeah. Like, I feel like whatever my parents were, whatever they had excess of as a quality, as an emotional quality, I might overcompensate on the other end.
I think when it comes to family, I'm generous. When it comes to me personally, I'm frugal. Right. Like I don't spend a lot on things for myself.
Why is that? I see this in a lot of people where I'm not saying your family is a patriarchy. I know your wife is a very accomplished person,
Yeah.
was an ambassador and all of that. But I see a lot of people, for the lack of a better word, the patriarch, the male breadwinner, the primary breadwinner of the family, is generally putting on the projection or the mask of frugality. Is it to subconsciously project onto the other family members that you are doing more by also contributing in that manner?
Is it self-serving? You think being
Everything in life is self-serving.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Look, some of it is role. You think you're role modeling it.
Yeah.
Part of it is like, for me, it's like people who grew up in the Depression, and then they later on have plenty,
Yeah.
but you still think you could lose it all the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, about like we would have these periods growing up where we lived very well, went on a nice vacation and everything, and then come home and we're broke. So this sense of that you could lose it
Yeah.
is never far from me.
If you were to describe Ted the human in 3 words, what would the 3 words be?
I'll go back to creative because I think it's the thing I pride myself on. Curious and honest. I mean, curious, you could say searching instead of curious, but
Yeah.
those are all nice. Those are all good. Those are all positive attributes, I guess.
Honest about
Everything I can be.
one thing that is wrong with the world today.
Lack of trust.
Because?
Probably because of the internet. I mean, just the division of things where you just start. Probably it goes back further than the internet. Obviously, it goes back for me growing up in America. This journalist that I so admired, they probably started it by bringing down Nixon by telling the truth.
Right.
Which then people stopped having faith in systems and hierarchies. And then, so I often had the arguments with Reed when I would say that when Walter Cronkite was the news and everybody tuned into the news to hear that from Walter Cronkite, that the world was a better place when there was one source of truth, even if it was wrong 25% of the time.
Is that happening today? People don't believe.
They don't believe anything. I mean, a lot of people don't believe anything.
Yeah.
And no one believes everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's made the world a better place in some ways.
How much of the world today, Ted, is narrative? I feel like there is an online world, there is a real world, and there is another world where our families live in and where we are more ourselves than we are in the other places. A lot of perception of how we are viewed in society has become a factor of the online world because everybody's online so much of the time.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's almost like once you and I are having a conversation right now, I see the camera right there.
Yeah.
I know this is going to be recorded and played for other people.
Would you say something differently if you could manifest no cameras around and you could imagine that they didn't exist?
I think I would.
Right.
I mean, I think I would be material, maybe say things materially different.
Right.
But I am aware of it, and so which changes the dynamic of the situation. So I think that because we're having this conversation and because it's being filmed, and it's going to exist on the internet for a long time, that people will be slightly guarded.
Right.
And so then, therefore, I know that when I see anything
Right.
on the internet, on television, anywhere, that is slightly manufactured, slightly guarded. And every once in a while, when you see something that is not, it's a marvel. It's a revelation when you see something that is authentic and real.
Maybe today is such a day.
I hope so. I think so. I will. I promise to try. I promise to be. Yeah.
So you joined Netflix and then you were competing initially with Blockbuster?
Blockbuster was as big a competitor as we could have imagined back then. Yeah.
How was that? How was that journey? Here is this behemoth, which was what, a $8 billion company back then? And what was
unimaginable that we could grow to $8 billion.
And $8 billion in 2003 is like, I don't know, $100 billion today.
Did it? Yeah. And they were global. They were really the only thing that we were aspiring to do. Blockbuster was the only company doing it. a real global entertainment brand.
Right.
Disney for sure, but they were also a very specific, narrow niche. But yeah.
So when you started delivering DVDs to people's homes, mail order or whatever, it used to take 2-3 weeks is what I read.
Yeah, we had, at the beginning, we only had one center in California.
Right.
And it would take 3 to 5 days to get to the East Coast. And then California got 1-day service all the time. So it took us a while to figure out that the people in California liked it much better than the people in New York. So we started opening centers around the country so that we can get the 1-day service. Eventually, at the peak of the DVD business, we were doing 1-day delivery to everywhere in the country.
And I was reading this case study which said that what did not work for Blockbuster specifically is the late fees. And there is this guy who talks about Daniel Kahneman, who wrote this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, who speaks about when you look back at a memory, the thing that you remember is the peak pain or the peak joy in the memory.
Yeah.
The returning a DVD after 10 days and paying that $3 a day late fee.
Yeah. Wiped out all the joy of it. Yeah.
Wiped out all the joy of Blockbuster. Now, when you built competition for Blockbuster, what did you do to ensure that that peak pain is not there? How did you mitigate that?
So, back we talk about going to the video rental store. And I always joke with my kids that that's like being a blacksmith. That's a job that doesn't exist anymore. But I said that business was never a good customer satisfaction business. Almost nobody who walked in the door got the movie they came for. So it became the second choice business. I always called it the managed dissatisfaction. So you didn't get what you came for.
Right.
And then B, when you brought it back, if you were a day late, you had to pay a fee and that's all you remember. So nothing about this was great, but then you come back Friday night and do it all over again. So for us, we were looking at what is the thing that people really hate about this? And because we're trying to get them to do something completely different. And that late fee was our biggest counterposition, which was there's never a late fee because it's just you keep it as long as you want. You just don't get another one till you return it. And you had 3 movies at home all the time, so you never really had to rush out and you can make all your decisions a week ahead. And if you give us a list, we'll give you everything on your list. Maybe not in the same order you asked for it, but you'll get everything on your list. So it took care of the first choice problem. It took care of the late fee problem. We had everything ever published on DVD, so you had the selection and choice. And then the really valuable thing was the recommendations, that we would help you find something you loved. And I'd learned so much working in the first little video store I worked in. I learned lessons that I carried into Netflix for years. Biggest one for me was trade radius. So we used to buy the movies for the store. And I like art films and I like Woody Allen comedies and Arizona wasn't a lot of fans of kind of the New York coastal comedy. So I would buy these movies that I loved and I'd say, wow, we can't support, because it used to be you buy the tape for $100 and you rent it out for $5 a night. You hope you make enough money to pay the $100 back. These tapes would never pay back. And it used to make me crazy. And I figured out there are plenty of Woody Allen fans in the country. There's not enough in the neighborhood that come to this store. So if you had 1,000 copies of a movie in a store, none of them make money. If you had 1 copy in 1,000 stores all over the United States, they'd all make money. So that was this kind of idea, and then Netflix became this kind of national footprint inventory. So we could support very small niches, or even more importantly, could roll up small niches into big ones. So for me, was one of the biggest lessons that we learned there. The other one was people really cared about this choice thing. They really cared about picking something that, and it always puzzled me because it's a $5 transaction, and people would spend an hour in the store walking and reading all the boxes and trying to figure out. And finally, I would start asking people in the store, well, why are you spending so much time when you're trying to pick a movie? And they said, well, I like how it makes me feel if I pick the movie and everyone likes it. It says a lot about me. So there's a whole psychology to how you pick and finding things you like that people value almost as a human being as much as a movie lover.
Is that still true? Like people feel like they get judged by the content they consume?
I do.
It's almost a projection thing again?
Yeah, I think there's We used to do this thing where you could put the things that were in your DVD queue. You could push a button and put it on your Facebook profile. And there were some people who wanted you to see their queue, and they didn't care about yours at all. So that's a thing about it. It would say something about their personality that you'll think more of me if these movies are good.
It's a bit like people posting pictures of the books they're reading on social media,
Yeah.
which they might not be reading.
Yes, but in some cases they'd be recommending the book because it moved them so much. Or in other ones, they might just be saying, "Oh, look what I'm reading." Yeah.
The former might happen a lot more than the latter, I presume.
Well, the other telling one for us on this one was the movies. We looked at how long people kept movies, and the movies that stayed out the longest are the ones that people are putting off watching. So what sat on top of the TV the longest? And it was Gone with the Wind and Citizen Kane, all the greats that they thought they had to watch or should watch.
Right.
They never got around to them, but they liked the idea that they could. Yeah.
That's so interesting, though. Even in society today, a lot of our choices are less for us, but more to fit into the mold of the projection that we are putting out. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
And that is one of the cool things about the internet. I think that people were able to find their tribes.
Right.
They were able to find the people who like the quirky thing that I like.
Right. Do people find their tribes, or they have a means of finding the tribe that is cool at that point of time?
I think they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. In a world today where, like back then, choice and what one should watch, somebody recommending that or giving someone 100 titles or 1,000,000 titles to choose from was a big thing. Do you think the world is moving today in a direction where I don't want 1,000,000 choices? I want 5 choices, and I want you to tell me which the 5 best choices are.
I mean, it's part of the bet, right? Is that these kind of helping you pick the worst thing you can give somebody. You'd think the worst thing would be a list of 100 movies, but the worst thing is a list of 1,000 movies.
Yeah.
So, but actually a curated list of 5 is unbelievably valuable.
Is that where you might go tomorrow?
Well, it wouldn't be us doing it. So even in these ways where we show you things today, we have to have a lot of very high confidence to only show you those things. So we'd still show you things that we have lower confidence that you're going to love, but the things that are most prominent are the things we're the most confident you're going to love.
What is a win for you? Like if I am a Netflix subscriber, I pay my $5 fee. When I land on a Netflix screen, the homepage, and you're watching me land there, what's a win for you and what is a loss for you? Is there something you want me to click?
No, we just want you to pick the movie that you're going to really love. The thing that we really value is when you push play, do you stay? So do you keep watching it all the way through? It's a good indicator that you like it. I mean, I'm taking a leap that it's a subscription service, so there's no extra fee. You can turn it off and watch something else. But people tend to watch the things that they like more of and then turn off the things they don't. So if you're turning it off, it was a bad pick. And I think what they find is that the more we get the right choice in front of you, the longer you stay a member. So for us, a fail might be that people come on and just click all over the place and search and find something that they don't like and push play and turn it off. That's a bad. We failed them in that transaction.
In a world where you also produce and curate and distribute content, wouldn't a win for you be when I click on a piece of content that you have produced versus sourced?
It would be financially, but not if you didn't like it. So I don't want me making you or pushing you towards something you don't like is a very short relationship.
Right. So Ted, most of our audience are people who want to build a business in the space of media and content. We cater to the entrepreneur-heavy crowd. So what I want to take away from today are some great insights of what might be low-hanging fruit to build in media. I could be a content creator. I could be somebody aspiring to build a platform. I could be somebody who is an actor, a director, somebody who works in the space of media. I could be a podcaster, a YouTuber, an independent musician, everything.
Yeah.
So if I were to largely categorize media today, I was trying to write down, and I wrote down print media, what you did first, broadcast media, what I grew up on, TV with pre-programmed,
Yeah.
news media, the news channels, big ticket cinemas, long form TV shows, I mean the TV series, sport, the theater business, gaming, reality TV. If TED was not part of Netflix, but you knew all that you have learned in the Netflix journey, and you had $100 to invest, is there one particular division where you would put your money behind? Binary $100. You can only put it or not.
It's just a bet or not bet.
Yeah,
What's the goal?
to make a return.
To make a return. I would say that producing content today you're going to get the great return because the delivery models are evolving so rapidly and the monetization is evolving so rapidly. You didn't have streaming as its own separate category there, but what I think the great news of that is that's a viable business model to keep making content, to keep making programming. So that's,
And when you say make programming, are you talking about that me individually say I'm shooting this podcast?
to me, the real value is how does it monetize? And you can streaming in a subscription service at scale can effectively monetize almost any content.
So you would put the money behind producing the content.
Yeah.
And is there a specific kind of content that you think has more tailwind than other kind of content?
I'm going to give you the cheap answer.
Yeah.
Good. You know what I mean? 'Cause I think people have such crazy diverse taste.
Right.
And the things that you like, I may not like, and vice versa. So the good version of what you're setting out to make is always going to work. But there's it's very broad. So many things the fact that Squid Game would be a global sensation like it is, it's completely unpredictable. I mean, the Korea team who picked it, they knew it was going to be a big hit in Korea. They were right. And it turns out those things that are big local hits, they are the best chance of traveling because they're very, very good. But this weird, you might think, well, what you ought to do is take a movie and get that guy from Squid Game and then get Shah Rukh Khan and then you get Brad Pitt and put them in a movie together. And then you've got this hodgepodge thing that no one recognizes.
Right.
It's not familiar to anybody and no one watches it.
Right.
So this idea of, authentically local storytelling being the most globally valuable is unintuitive, but totally true.
Familiarity is a good thing?
Yeah. I think people will see, like I said, I think when you watch Squid Game, it's very fundamentally Korean storytelling. It's Korean horror. It's there's nothing about it that is, the edges aren't shaved down at all. But people see something in it, class, fairness. Those are very universal themes, and they see the universal themes in it. You think about this idea that there's not that many total stories in the world, really. They're just told different variants of them. They're all boiled down to some form of Shakespeare,
Right. There's a movie called Kantara. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I know, but I don't.
Yeah, it's a Kannada movie where I come from, Bangalore, my hometown. It's made there. Again, very folksy, very local.
Yeah.
It's very interesting you're saying that. So in a manner, you're saying Bollywood should not try and sell or make the stories of Hollywood, and Hollywood should not try and make the stories of Bollywood.
Right.
Which is not what is happening, though.
Yeah. Look, I got worried years ago that when everyone was when the China market opened up for America, America was making movies for China, China's making movies for China. Who's making movies for America? So for me, it's like this idea that everything has to travel, everything has to be big. That's why you end up with a dispassionate relationship to movies.
So local is a very interesting word.
Yeah.
Everybody in this room is at the very core, like each one of us, deeply passionate about content from a different lens. Somebody might be viewing it through the lens of sitting behind a camera, someone's on audio, I might be speaking, someone else is doing something. So beyond local, what else can you tell us? Long form content, short form content, movie, TV show.
So I think that those lines are all blurring. I feel like
Micro series.
Was that?
Micro series. That's a new word I heard.
Yeah.
3-minute shows, 1 episode a day.
Yeah, the micro dramas and these
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know that it's fun. I don't know that that's a business yet.
Right.
I've looked at it quite a bit. I think that a documentary particularly is something, the way it fails mostly is a short that should have been a feature that should have been a short, just picking the running time that's appropriate to the story you're telling. So the one thing that's great about a series is an 8-hour movie is probably not going to work.
Right.
But sometimes there's 8 hours of storytelling, and doing it in 1 hour bites or 30-minute bites is the perfect way to tell this story in 8 hours, and it has to be 8 hours. Let the story lead every time.
And it doesn't matter. It could be an 8-hour movie. It might work, right?
Completely. Look at I watched it's Adolescence from the UK,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
a very big sensation now around the world. So if you watch the whole thing, it's 4 hours long. It's only 40 minutes longer than The Brutalist. One movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I also say, Ted, it's very impressive that unlike many CEOs in your shoes, you're not selling the organization you belong to beyond a point.
Yeah.
We interview a lot of people, especially Westerners who come to India, who are constantly going back and following the diktat of the corporation that's sitting behind, and it gets boring to people beyond a point.
Yeah, yeah.
It's nice that you're being slightly candid. Okay.
Yeah.
So local duration.
Slightly. Just slightly.
For now.
Okay.
There's room to get better.
Okay. I'll take the feedback.
Okay. Local duration doesn't matter. Again, if I am 20 and I'm trying to build a career in media, I am not going to college. I've grown up in Bangalore or in Bombay or in Chennai or a city in India. If I had a choice to focus on print, the newspapers in India, join a streaming platform like yours, trying to join a production company, do something in sport, do something in gaming. Is there career advice you can give a 20-year-old me? Where should I go? Where could the odds of success be the highest? Financial success.
Well, first of all, I think what we try to do is figure out, I think the right first path is to get into work for one of the agencies.
Agencies like?
Like CAA, UTA, these agencies who represent talent management. You learn more about the business in 6 months than anyone could teach you, or that you could learn you'll get one little view of the world in any one of these jobs you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Where if you go into the agency business first.
That's actually I read his book, Mykovitz.
Yeah.
That is almost run like a cult. Their people behave in the very family. Everybody has the same car in a certain level of management. Their families live next to each other.
Yeah.
It's very cultish in that.
They do work on percentages though, so it's a meritocracy in that you move up the ladder by making more. So
they work on a fixed percentage even without a contract, right?
Yeah.
They don't sign contracts with their talent.
No. Right.
But I actually, funnily enough, have a small partnership in a talent management agency here called Collective. I think it's the largest in India. I have spent some time in their office. I haven't learned much. Why do you say?
Really? Well, I don't know if the culture is different here than it would be in the US.
The culture is very similar to the...
So in the US, you will be on the phone with them, negotiating, listening to them negotiate the deal. The agents, their assistants are on the phones. They're actually listening to the calls and listening to the details of deals that otherwise they're just trying to scrape, dig through the trash to read the turn of contracts. Where I think you can just learn more, you're more hands-on, you realize why things do and don't work and why deals fall apart, all those kind of things. And so I think you just get more of a broad picture of the entertainment business. Yeah. And then if you want to get into what you want to do particularly, I think you should find the thing that you're really, really good at. Mm. And I think for a way, one of my life lessons back to my journalism versus executive is I was passionate about being a journalist. I just wasn't very good at it. I think if I would have been really good at it, I would have been even more passionate about it. And the reason I dropped out of it even, I said, well, everyone I'm seeing ahead of me none of them are doing very well in life. You know, they're working in small markets and working their way up. And if you're going to do that, you've got to really love it. You know, it's struggle for 10 years and do all that. And versus if you just find something that you're really good at, you will excel and you'll feel good. You will get passionate at things that you're good at because you'll be proud of yourself for being good at it. And you will excel at those things that you're really good at. And you figure that out by doing a lot of different things. That's what I mean about the agency giving you exposure to different things that you probably don't know that you're going to love or that you're good at because this is what your 20s are for.
Yeah.
You know, in your 20s, try things. You go out there, and if they don't work, quit. Or you'll get fired maybe, but if you don't get fired, quit and try something else. You shouldn't be unhappy at work in your 20s. You should be moving on to the next thing in your 20s.
Yeah. I'm going to digress a bit and ask you a question. A lot of people are freaked out by the fact or by the rumor that Netflix might soon produce theatrical movies. Don't the lines get blurred there?
We're not doing that.
You're not doing that.
Some of our movies go to the theaters just as a tactical part of the release. Mm-hmm. But our business is the subscription entertainment business. So the movies that we produce them for our subscription business. And I think, but looking at the box office is pretty healthy in India. It's down a bit.
It's down. I think it's down.
Yeah.
Even today, at pre-COVID levels, net collections of all theaters.
Yeah, in the US, it's down about 20% right now. But remember, ticket prices are up 25%. So attendance is way down.
Right.
And I look at that as a sign from the consumers of what they want. And because average American consumer watches 2 movies a year in the theater, watches 7 movies a month on Netflix. So I take that as a sign that they would like to watch movies at home, thank you. So if I put them in the theater and then starve them, I won't let you see this movie because I have to put it in the theater for 2 months before. I don't know what that says to the people who gave me the money to make the movie in the first place.
So there's again another friend of mine called Ajay. I was an investor in that company for a while. It used to be the largest chain, but now they've combined to become the only chain of multiplexes in the country. It's called PVR and Inox together. So whenever me and Ajay catch up, I'm always asking him, what is next for the theater business? The penetration of movie theaters in India is far lower than it is in the West. Even lower than
there
it
are
is.
fewer theaters?
Much fewer.
Yeah.
Like, I would say a vast majority of our country still does not have access to a movie theater. Yeah. The experience where for $20 a movie, a family of 3 or 4 can be entertained in a safe environment with air conditioning and food if you choose to access food and all of that for 3 hours or 4 hours. It sounds very appetizing to me from an experience standpoint for a vast majority of India. Yeah. But in theory, it is not playing out like that, maybe, because I don't think movie theaters are doing as well as they were doing 5 or 10 years ago.
And it's interesting. Almost everything else, for like live events, is back bigger than pre-COVID. Live concerts, sporting events, all these things, all bigger. So I actually think consumers went back to the theater and said, this isn't much better than watching at home. Where you go to a concert, it's a totally different experience than listening to a CD. Or you go to sporting events, way different than watching a football game on television. And we're seeing the movie for most movies is it's not much better experience. Now, depending on the size of the theater, it may not be a better experience at all. No, you see a movie in a big IMAX room. Yeah. That's something, and it's the right movie. It's mind blowing. I love that still exists.
That is Ajay's business model. Yeah. Have you spoken to him, Ajay, the largest multiplex?
I have not. No, we don't really distribute theatrically. Yeah. So
But again, for $20 and a 3-hour window, barring cricket, maybe like somebody sitting at home watching a cricket match, or actually watching Netflix for 3 hours or 4 hours, there aren't that many options for families, right? Like, if you had a choice, would you buy into or short sell into any theater business today?
I don't know their business that well.
Yeah.
It's a high fixed cost business.
Right.
And that the consumers have found substitutes for.
Right.
But again, I think that there's something that's really wonderful about seeing a big movie in the theater and enjoying it.
Do you go, Ted?
I do.
Yeah. They must just hate you when you get to them. Which was the
But I
last...
don't go as often as I used to, but mostly because I'm just not finding the movies that I want to see there anymore. Yeah.
The really affluent of audience with the most spending power, also because the cost of television has gotten so democratized, can afford large screen TVs at home, right?
Can't?
Can.
Yeah, they can now, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper. Yeah. It's cheaper to make a large screen TV now than it is to make a phone.
Yeah.
So I think people will go up that curve. Yeah.
So what's the next big disruption here?
It's a great question because the internet. It's going to be tough to find one that's going to be as big as the internet was the disruption to entertainment, like it was to many things.
Right.
I think it's going to be less likely to be in distribution and be in creativity, and some AI certainly part of it, virtual production certainly part of it. The way people can create can take things to a whole different level than they were. It's moving very fast too, and I'm not afraid of AI, and I hope creators aren't afraid of AI because I actually think it's going to make great tools to tell stories even better and make it possible to make movies they couldn't before. Won't likely displace the things that humans are very particularly good at: performance, emotion, writing, all the things in the writing and the performance. But things like the technology it takes to de-age an actor, those tools have moved so fast now that versus 5 years, when we did The Irishman, that technology was probably $30 million of the budget was just the technology to do the de-aging. And it was very disruptive to the production cycle, what actors had to put on their face and all that kind of thing. Extra camera rigs, all kinds of different things. Today, we can do that exact film better for a fraction of that. Maybe we just made a movie called Pedro Paramore. The cinematographer on that film, on Irishman, was the director of Pedro Paramore. He basically made this entire movie for less than the de-aging budget for The Irishman.
What do you think of a world where AI has gotten to the point where I could just prompt and say that make a movie of Ted and Nikhil having a conversation around topics like A, B, C, D, E. And it does it so well that Ted and Nikhil are no longer required. What happens then?
It's an interesting hypothetical. I don't know that ever happens. I mean, meaning that it's the art of the prompt is also going to be a human skill. Now, you'd think the prompts become self-training at some point.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The bigger thing I worry about is that you put something in and the prompt will spit something out, and you think, no, not like this, like this, not like this, like this, not like that, like this. Whether or not people stop taking the step of saying not like this and just go with what was spit out.
Yeah.
That would be the danger, but there won't be any need to it because I really think the things that it's going to do is lower the cost of doing things in a way that makes it possible to tell bigger and better stories, and then but still requires people to do that.
Yeah.
Because imagination and emotion are the things that really. In fact, what AI is doing today is like the antithesis of imagination. It's giving you the most predictable outcome based on these kind of rough ideas you're giving it. But I think those tools will become very much like visual effects tools, or very much like computer animation. You're using the tools to tell the story and express yourself in a way that you couldn't before. And I think of the leap forward from 2D hand-drawn animation to CG animation is much bigger than the leap from we're going to experience with AI. And more animators today, those films are more expensive, actually, and employ more people and more creatives, and they're better than they've ever been.
Yeah. I was watching Lion King, Mufasa.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, isn't it great?
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember we were just talking about theaters. Is it crazy that when my kids are 28 and 30, when they were very little, I took them to see The Lion King on Broadway. And I just looked up recently, that play has made more money than the film. Made billions of dollars. The play between the touring companies and everything else, it's made, I think, almost $10 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. if you could invest in just that one.
Tough to call it, no? Like before it happens.
Yeah.
In terms of live, my team was telling me that there was this episode of Black Mirror which was interactive and you could control the outcome you wanted to a certain extent.
Bandersnatch, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that'll happen?
It was very interesting and novel.
Yeah.
It wasn't huge. Video games do that so much better.
Yeah.
If you really want to control all your outcomes and design the worlds you're playing in and all those kind of things, I think video games is a better outlet for doing that. Tell me what we're eating.
This, I think, is cottage cheese.
Yeah.
This is some kind of peach with sourdough bread.
Okay.
And this is lamb.
Oh, cool. I like lamb. Okay. Yeah. So they definitely. I look at things that happen on the TV that compete for time on TV, and games are definitely a part of that.
Yeah. We can go back to the Netflix story. So you started sending DVDs in a world where VCRs were ruling the roost.
Yeah.
You went from delivering them in 3 weeks to delivering them the next day or the same day and all of that. Blockbuster started to die. Netflix started to rise. When did the switch from sending something physically to almost sending something to someone's home digitally happen? And I don't need you to go into the details of this, but can you explain to me, like I'm a 10-year-old boy, how the tech behind it works? The cost of storing on a server, the cost of me making a call from my device that I want this particular video, and the cost of streaming it. Because this I will tell you as a member or as a subscriber of Netflix and every other streaming platform there is, you guys are doing something right, which others have not caught on to. Like if I were to watch a movie on Amazon, even the forwarding experience, when I go from minute 5 to minute 30, it is so much more seamless on Netflix. These tiny things like UI, I feel, are the difference between everything. The tiny stuff.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, like, broad picture, what does that look like?
Well, you got to keep in mind, when we started doing this, the vision was always to be a digital delivery business. So all the work that was going into this all started back in day one. It's the technology itself, it's on demand, it's streaming, it's not downloading, it's not mass live. So it's really optimized for point-to-point delivery. And the biggest thing that we've put a lot of money and effort into is every device that's connected to the television, Netflix is individually optimized for that device. So things like early on, one of the things we were finding is Netflix would work better when your connection's faster. And sometimes your connection would slow down on you and it would start buffering. And that's the worst thing that can happen in a stream. So they built in the ability to downshift, basically, send you a lower res picture for a minute while your speed catches up. And it all happened in a cache behind the scenes, so you never felt it. So very, very subtle, very gentle, a degradation of picture quality for a few minutes, then comes right back. So that's stuff we were working on at the very beginning of streaming, because they knew that that was not going to be an acceptable way to watch a movie. The work that goes into picture quality, that goes into compression, that goes into building this open connect system that actually puts the data physically nearer people's homes, so it's not traveling so far on the internet, helps the delivery system, the content delivery services serve us better and us cheaper to serve us than anybody else. But we did all that work and invested in it for almost, I would bet all the other entertainment companies, their second biggest expense is marketing, and ours is tech. Second only to content. So the model itself is not, it's not about whether or not how the technology itself works, whether or not it's perfectly optimized for variable speed, variable device, variable connection, all meant to do the same thing, which is not to get stuck, and deliver the most high quality experience possible, sound and video and audio. So we had, in the earliest days of Netflix, when we had terrible quality of content, the content was lousy what we were streaming. We had people doing what they called golden eye test on the stream to make sure the stream looked beautiful, because eventually the content was going to get good. So I think most people, when they saw Netflix growing up, they thought, oh, that's easy. We'll buy some off-the-shelf software and stream. Everyone can stream. Look at YouTube's doing it, that kind of thing. But the truth of it is, it's really hard and it's really complicated, especially in a multi-device world and with variable speeds of connection. And sometimes you see it break down, like on the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. We pushed the internet right to the limits that night. But we learned so much now. We got a lifetime of learning that night. So then you see the NFL on Christmas Day, trouble-free. So to me, it's like, for us, we are a tech company that got into entertainment. We still have very much of a tech DNA, even though we've become primarily an entertainment company, but our DNA is still very much a tech company.
So in a way, you don't have one USP, but you have two. One is content curation and the other is tech. Is that right?
Yeah. But if no matter how good the content is, if the delivery is bad, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And vice versa is true too.
So the tech first,
the tech can be beautiful. If the content's terrible, people still are going to turn you off.
But tech more important than the content even.
I think it's the cost of entry. It's table stakes. The tech has to work better. And I think what you just described, almost everyone describes to me that.
Yeah.
That why can't they do it as well as you do? Why does it not work when I push play on this one?
Yeah.
So
I met the YouTube CEO a couple of days ago, Neil.
Yeah, he's a good man.
Is he competition?
Yeah, for sure. For definitely same thing, for time and attention, and increasingly for ad dollars. Yeah.
Because he's doing movies and you will do music at some point, right?
That will do music?
Yeah.
No.
But you will do.
There's plenty of music out there. It's and it's I think it's a very different business model.
But you will do like podcasts and individual content creators putting up content.
I think there's a class of creators on YouTube that is pretty close to professional content. I kind of think of them as kind of pro-am creators. The things they're doing look pretty great. Podcast is a form of user-generated content. The line between a talk show and a podcast are getting pretty blurry.
Yeah, like we have 20 people working on this. So I don't know what we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no reason that wouldn't be on Netflix.
Yeah.
I actually believe that that content will better monetize on Netflix than it does on YouTube. Not all of it, but for certain creators, it certainly would. So we'll look to do that.
Yeah. So we don't monetize any of our content. We don't have ads. We don't have sponsors. It's largely like a charity project around entrepreneurship in India. But for people like us, where we put it freely on everything without ads, sitting behind
so for you, the reach is the most important part. Yeah.
Sitting behind a platform kind of doesn't make sense because then you can't be on every other platform.
Right.
So for someone like me, say we produce content, we don't produce a lot of it, but the little bit that we do put out is great quality. And we do it here at WTF, which is this channel. I have a broking business. We produce a bunch of content from there. So we have maybe 10, 20 different things which are parallelly running at any time. To bring that under an umbrella and be able to compete with a larger distributor, what do you think we can do? Is there a shot? Like if you had to suggest a playbook of building a...
Why do you want to compete with them? Why not just co-opt them?
The problem is while we distribute on them, we never know, we don't get to touch our subscribers in a way. We don't know their names, we don't know their email IDs, we don't know their phone numbers, we don't know who they are, what is working, what is not working. Like take your example, a movie producer who's independent will never have access to the kind of data Netflix has access to. You might know tomorrow with cameras on television sets or mobile phones that you could probably gauge when the pupils of a certain person dilate when they're watching a certain character do a certain thing in a particular movie. So if you don't control the medium, you don't access the data. In turn, you can't. It's like trying to compete with 100th the data that someone else has. Tomorrow, YouTube will make their own content like Netflix makes their own.
Yeah.
It happens in every industry, right? You look at a food delivery platform.
Yeah.
When you don't know who you're, if I'm a restaurant and I don't know.
YouTube may never. I mean, it's an interesting one because I think that business has got content creators willing to give them their programming for free.
Yeah.
So in fact, if they start paying for any of it, it might screw up the whole system. So that may be the one difference. But I do think that I think about it in terms of like companies like Shopify, where most of the companies on Shopify mostly are also sell on Amazon and have all those dynamics that you talk about. But they use Shopify to present their brand. They use it to get all the learns that you're talking about, that they're getting from being more direct, feeling like they're more direct to consumer, and then apply those things to Amazon the best they can. So they're Amazon selling the best they can. So I think that might be the same thing with YouTube. There's a lot of third-party companies that analyze YouTube analytics that can tell you all the things that you would know if you owned YouTube.
But they would never let me touch my subscriber. Even with the third party.
Yeah, you have to do other things to do that. That's what the Shopify does is it creates touch points with consumers.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the new business models I see on YouTube is build distribution on YouTube, then figure out a way to transition your subscribers out of it.
Yeah.
And then in turn, you can engage with them.
It's like food delivery, right? The restaurant in my neighborhood that I order from all the time started putting a thing in the bag that said, order from me directly, please. Yeah.
So Netflix, we had gotten to the time where you spend the initial years figuring out the tech. This is after you have solved the Blockbuster problem, evolved beyond that. What happened next? You figured out how to stream using technology in a manner that is more convenient, faster, no latency than the incumbent players or anybody. You didn't have any incumbents back then, right?
No,
there was no
not
competition
really.
for streaming.
Not really. I mean, we started streaming almost the exact same time that Amazon and Hulu did in the US. So, and it started originals almost the exact same time.
Right.
So we were watching how all three of us were running for the same prize at that time. One of our concerns was that Hulu did a lot of TV, and Netflix, because of our DVD roots, we were kind of known as a movie company, and we really wanted to make sure that we didn't become the movie company and Hulu became the TV company. So that's why we kind of got into TV at the same time, licensing TV shows.
What happens to old school TV? The TV that I grew up on, like the TV where I still remember, I used to go home from school at 3 p.m. and watch this particular cartoon called SWAT Cats and Powerpuff Girls and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I remember watching all these Indian soaps, with my mother, like late in the night, Kyunki Sasbi and all of that. What happens to that entire industry?
I mean, I guess a lot of it shows up in retro channels. I think there'll be an economic model where we'll have more of it over time. These fast services that are mostly ad supported, I think those are mostly delivering most of those episodes to people. YouTube certainly does some of that.
Right.
So, but I feel like there's a lot of different ways to get to it. No one's going to be making shows like that anymore.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting. I can never figure out why a show that worked for a 7-year-old this year doesn't work for a 7-year-old 2 years from now. But it's because the marketplace moves so fast. Kids now, mostly it's more aspirational. So by the time you get to 7 now, you want to watch what 10-year-olds watch.
Do you see a shift in content where, I know this can't be specific for India and the US, they're probably completely different, but what is working in the US today and what is working in India? Somebody was telling me that crime, horror, spirituality are ruling the roost in India. Is that different in the US?
It's secular too. Crime is very big. People love true crime. I mostly think because I don't think because people are macabre. I think they like crime because they're puzzle solvers, problem solvers, and we're trying to solve a puzzle. I think it's very built into our DNA to figure things out. I think of religion is that. Why did people go west in the United States, in the U.S. when they landed? To get to the next thing and figure it all out. People want to know how it began and how it ended, and figure out all those things. So I actually think people are very curious, and that true crime scratches a puzzle itch that people have. But yeah, so that's very, very universal. It works everywhere.
So talking about Netflix in India specifically, I think you have two incumbent, I would say competition for the lack of a better word. Sport, cricket for one of them, for Disney Hotstar,
Yeah.
Geo Hotstar now, has been a big funnel to get in a large audience. Cricket is a religion in India. If you put IPL on a certain platform, it changes everything.
Yeah.
You have taken a slightly more nuanced approach where you're not taking the very expensive broadcasting rights of a sport, but like you did on F1, you create a documentary behind it and it works just as well.
Yeah.
Would you like to elaborate as to why you did that and your thoughts around that?
Formula One is probably the best example of the theory playing out. For me, I believe that big sports, cricket in India, the NFL in the United States, those leagues are so powerful. The consumer demand for them is so high, they should get all the money. So whoever's delivering it, it's just a distribution business. Should be very, very low margin just for distribution only. So if I have that game and then next week I lose it and it goes to the next person, that whole audience can go from here to here. So at the end of the day, I don't know why you would lose a lot of money on a sport, because you'll never get to the place where it's profitable. So, and you probably can't make enough profit on everything else that you could lose too much on that sport. So one of the tests for me was to what you just described with Formula One. We built this show called Drive to Survive. Formula One's very popular around the world, but weirdly unpopular in the United States. People didn't know the sport. They didn't know how it works. They didn't know these people. The races are in the middle of the night. So it just never got popular. So we did this documentary series. What I loved about the sport and why I thought it'd make great television, it's, beautiful people doing dangerous things in beautiful places. That's pretty good TV. And that's what happened. I think people tuned into the shows. They learned about the drivers and they figured out how the rules worked. They got more and more interested in watching races. So when the deal came up, I thought, okay, now we have an audience of Formula One fans. The audience has gone up, but not dramatically. It's gone up 2 or 3 times though from what it was. It was very small. The rights. So let's just say I was holding those rights. When that contract came up, because of all the brand building I did for Formula One, that fee went up 10 times. That would have been my reward for growing Formula One, is my fee would have gone up 10 times. So I look at it like big league sports, likely the league owners keep all the profits always. And you could now, for what we're doing now, our version of this would be something like the NFL on Christmas Day, where we actually create a Netflix event around it, where we have back-to-back football on that day. We have a Beyonce concert in between. And it was a real kind of a fun, like Christmas Day piece of programming that's very unique to Netflix. And that a reason to have Netflix is for that day. So that's the way our kind of take on it, or creating the big sport event ourselves, like we did with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson's fight.
Is that the way me aspiring to create content? Like you told me earlier that the best low-hanging fruit to build a business in this field is to produce content. You've told me go local. You've said duration doesn't matter. You said familiarity is actually a good thing because people click it. If I were to build something around sport, then should I look at building a reality show on top of cricket, for example?
I mean, you've yet to have an interesting take on it that someone else hasn't yet.
Right.
But yeah, and those stories, there's a lot of stories to be told.
This entire subscription model, Ted, like India has struggled with that. Like I know maybe Disney Hotstar or Geo Hotstar now has 50, 60, 100 million subscribers who are paying some kind of a fee. But I find that subscribing for something is not an easy sell in India. Advertising is palpable, but
Why do you, it's definitely true. Why do you think,
Yeah.
why do you think that is? It's something in the culture.
I don't know. Like, I've thought of this. Like, when we've thought of media business, we considered, can we have a subscription fee where we charge people every month for a media business that we were ideating? When you come down to extrapolating, one part of it is affordability. I think there might be 100 or 200 million people in India who can actually afford
Yeah.
to spend that premium towards an additional expense in the household.
Right. And they have to have broadband at home and
Yeah.
big screen
Yeah.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say 200 million. But outside of that, I feel like culturally we are averse to paying an online fee for something that is recurring in a manner that the Americans are not.
Yeah. The recurring charges was definitely a cultural, outside of
Yeah.
the cultural norm.
Yeah, I don't know how.
I couldn't understand it either when we first got here. I thought, who wouldn't want that? It's so convenient. Why would you want to have to go back and pay to the credit card every month? And then somebody explained it to me. They said, well, that is the cultural norm. What if somebody asked you for your debit card?
Right.
You would say, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because our first efforts were, because remember, it was not even allowed to have recurring charges.
Yeah.
That we said, we should work with the government to try to see if we can change that or change the banking regulations so we could change that. And instead of saying, is that what the consumer wants? Yeah, and it turned out you were right. The consumer doesn't want it.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure what could culturally have made us that way. We're a more savings-oriented country.
Yeah.
Could that be a reason that you don't, the amount of money in your bank account, we place a great degree of weightage in knowing what that number is, and it makes us feel good?
I don't want to stereotype it, but I feel like my experience has been that Indian people are more mindful of their money than American people are.
Yeah.
Mindful, to your point, that you know what you have, you know
Yeah.
what you want to spend, you're more mindful about it.
And access to credit is lower than it is in America. Very few people have credit cards.
Yeah.
You have this plan where you're subsidizing the monthly fee but showing advertising. And I read that it's working really well for you.
Yeah.
And as much as 50% of new audience is coming in through that. If that were to grow and all Netflix has ads, what happens then?
Well, I don't think there's ever a world where we do all ads. We're a choice brand. So so the folks who really don't want ads, there's always going to be an option for them to do that. In fact, I think that our business will be primarily a subscription for the foreseeable future. We'll grow the ad business to be a good part of our business for sure. But I think that even when it's very healthy, it'll still be 20% of the business. But it's interesting because the ads only model doesn't support the kind of ambitious content that we put on.
Yeah.
And so the trick is finding the right balance of ad load and entertainment, or where the consumers say, yeah, I'll take a lower fee and I'll watch the ads and it's fine. Or it's like, we have to put on too many ads to make this even watchable. You've seen that, I think, happen in some other places. So
You spend more money on content now than anybody, right? Netflix.
Yeah.
That puts you in a position where most popular people across the world really want FaceTime with you, likely. How does that change the dynamics inside your head?
That's good. Well, it's been interesting because I think when we started out, even when we weren't spending as much as everybody else, we set out to be kind of artist friendly. So we always had a disproportionate draw with talent. First, before it was the money, it was the better place to work. And for me, I think it's very exciting part of the business to be around and working with very creative people. So I don't kid myself, but like a lot of like what you said, I think it's the chair. People want to be whoever's in the chair.
Yeah.
I'm glad that today it's Bella Bajari and her team and who do most of that work today.
Yeah.
But I do feel like our ability to help people find a big audience is as exciting for me as it is for them.
Yeah.
So.
But unlike a politician, your chair is almost in perpetuity. You don't have a fixed term where you are re-elected, right?
If things don't go well long, we'll see how long that seats.
Yeah. I think it's easier to be oblivious of the chair as a corporate than it is as a elected politician who has to kind of fight for that chair periodically, cyclically.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because my life is and my wife too, our lives are kind of intertwined professionally and personally. So the folks that we work with a lot of times are among my best friends. And I do think there is that relationship is always in check in that one dimension all the time. Like, I don't wonder if that's why we're friends because they work here. But I also don't I wouldn't use the friendship to move a business initiative, and I hope they wouldn't either. Yeah.
Yeah. Your wife used to be an ambassador.
She was U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you been married a long while, Ted?
Yeah, 15 years. Yeah.
And how did you meet?
We met on the Obama campaign. She was the finance chair for Southern California, and I was a guest who arrived for one of the events that she was running. I got there late. I was the last person to arrive. So the very first words my wife said to me was, "You're late." And I arrive at the event, and there's a place to take a picture with then Senator Obama and then go into the event. I get there, she goes, "You're late." I go, "I'm sorry." She goes, "Well, take your picture and go get your seat." So I do this thing and I go to my table, and she comes by the table to tell the host of the table, if the senator's not coming to your table, if you want to meet the senator, you got to go to that table. So I just leaned into him. I go, "Who is this?" He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, I go, "Who is this woman? She's amazing." And he goes, "How do you not know her? She's this Nicole Avon. How do you not know Nicole Avon?" And I go, "I don't know her." And he goes, I'll introduce you to her later." So at the end of the night, we left the event and went to a dinner, 10 people. And I'm sitting there talking to my friend Lawrence Bender, who hosted the table. And he said, "Oh, here comes Nicole." And she came in by herself. And he goes, "Switch seats so you can talk to her. She's great." And we switched seats, and I sit and talk to her. We talked for 3.5 hours. Wow. And 8 months later, we were married.
Wow.
She's an amazing woman, Nicole. I mean,
I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, she's really phenomenal.
So Netflix in India, you don't have significant market share yet. How important is it for you as a market? And how are you approaching it? Like, what is working for you in India and what is not working for you in India?
Well, I think to your point earlier about figuring out the good product market fit, including payment systems and all those things early on, took us a couple of years to get that right. I also think that as the product has ramped up, our very first Indian original show was Sacred Games, and I thought this is going to be great. People in India love movies. This is a TV show that feels as big as a movie, has movie stars.
I loved the show.
Well, what's interesting about it is it was very, very novel, but I didn't realize that we were going to be introducing a brand new kind of entertainment to a country the size of India, because there was nothing else like it. That for TV was typically, I think, would be sports and talk and very not kind of cinema infused television that we've been doing around the world. So for me, it was like if I did it all over again, would I have done Sacred Games a couple of years later and did some things that were more populist programming? Maybe. But we knew that India was going to be a slower journey to get to where we want to get to, but that it's a great prize at the end of the day. So, I mean, right now you can see how fast Indian households are adopting fixed broadband. Big screen TVs are growing. The addressable market in India is exploding in the next couple of years. So it's exciting.
And you have 3 plans in India. The cheapest one with ads, I think, is about 149 or 199. I can't remember the number. Are you finding traction at that level? Most of your traction at that level?
No, it's across all the programs.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever suits the individual. Yeah.
I don't want to ask you about your sharing password thing because I feel like you guys have
Talked out. Yeah.
you've spoken about it enough and you've taken cognizance of that.
And by the way, it was one of those things where I think allowing it and promoting it even early on, it was a good way to promote the business. And a lot of people got to try it that way and those kind of things. And, a lot of companies start with free trials in some form and then eliminate them as you go, which is all we did.
In terms of India, any other nuance that you've learned in the time that you've been here that is interesting? Content in India?
I think it's interesting to me, like the first thing people want to know anywhere I travel is what do people only watch here? And I'm more interested in the opposite. Like how are we the same? And I was very surprised at how international India is. I think there was a belief or a conventional wisdom was that India is all Bollywood and India is all local. And actually the taste of their international shows play really, really well in India. So the taste is very broad and very global.
So I don't know much about Bollywood. Like I know a little bit. I have a bunch of friends who work in Bollywood or in the media or content space. Whoever I ran into over the last week, I kept asking them, like I'm meeting Ted, tell me as an industry insider, what would you like me to ask him? I asked a friend called Adar, a friend called Amrit, Dinu, like a bunch of people, Hitesh, Jane, people I ran into all of last week. Each one had a different question almost. Jane is a younger lawyer, 26 years old. He works in the entertainment zone a little bit, but is primarily a lawyer. He was asking me in terms of content moderation and regulation, is there a different benchmark you apply on a country by virtue of microdynamics in the country? Like when you're regulating content, how do you look at India?
We try, obviously we program the sensibilities of the audience. But I do think, we're usually try to be mindful and respectful, obviously always follow local law when it comes to these things around the world. And lean into expression a little, for protect free speech of the artist, and but also don't do things that are unnecessarily provocative.
If I get inspired by the conversation I hear today, I'm in the audience, and I set about ideating what kind of content to build. Can you tell me one theme that I should build in? No. One specific theme, like a micro theme?
No, because I don't think you can reverse engineer into something that we want,
No?
Yeah, no, you kind of...
Do you have an algorithm like YouTube has one?
No,
what do you favor?
Definitely not on greenlighting.
No?
The idea, mostly it is the quality of the storytelling. Is this a world that people are going to want to spend time in? Are these people care about? Do I care how these people... what happens to these people? So I'll stick with them to the end. And that is very unintuitive. What will get you to a yes on every one of those, or all of those, or any of those. So for me, it's like be careful not to kind of reverse engineer your way into a pitch. Just you have to write a story that people have got to see and you've got to make.
So when Netflix is greenlighting a project today, is it data or is it gut?
It's gut.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, remember, you're picking stories that you're predicting someone's going to want to see. You're predicting, will this person be able to deliver this vision to the screen? Have they ever done it before? Sometimes they've never done it before. So you really are going with the creator, betting on the creator, and betting on the story that they pitch to you.
Yeah. Is there baggage of a founder, Ted? Like Reed was a fairly popular CEO and founder of Netflix.
Yeah.
When you fill someone's shoes, somebody like him, this is useful for anybody taking over a company which was run by a very popular, magnanimous character. What do you have to watch out for?
I think you really just want to be yourself. Don't try to be him because you're not
Right.
you're not him. We talked about the succession of the company.
Right.
Reed talked about it with the board 10 years ago.
Right.
When I met him in 1999, in a way, he was talking about succession. He
Right.
said to me, "I'm building a company that's going to be around longer than me," which implies succession, right? So it's always been on his mind. He asked me to be the co-CEO with him about 7 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, which was a very unusual step for a founder CEO to take a co-CEO. But it was all part of his long-term plan, which was, I think that this business, Reed and I had been practical co-CEOs before that, me doing the entertainment, Reed doing the tech. And then he kind of memorialized it by giving me the title. And I broadened my scope a little bit. But I think in his head, he said, I think this co-CEO thing was the right way to do it. And so when he talked about him actually moving on, it was the move to another co-CEO, me and Greg Peters, in very similar model than we have with Reed. But neither of us, we both have our strengths, we both have our weaknesses. Neither of us are Reed, and we don't try to be.
Do you think that's a good idea, having co-CEOs? I'm just like,
It's very odd. It's odd that it doesn't work in many. There's a lot of stories where you can look back and there were 3 co-Roman emperors that didn't go very well. But if you look back at the track record of the co-CEOs, and it's spotty. But I think where it really works well here is we do 2 very distinctly different things. We manage 2 distinctly different cultures inside the business, with tech culture and entertainment culture. We're even physically in 2 different places in California. And it enables us to bring out the best in ourselves in the things that we do, provide technical guidance and inspiration for people in an area that where we have our sea legs. And I think it helps for recruiting. People want to work for people that know what they're doing in the area that you're coming to work for us on. So I think it may not work at every company that does what we do, even, because I feel like the company is inherently free of politics. All the things in the culture deck, Greg and I wouldn't stab each other in the back for this job. We both want this thing to work forever. Right. The same way I didn't want Reed to leave.
Yeah.
So I really think that it uniquely works at Netflix, and it may not work at every company. But I think it's worth always checking it out and testing the model out and see. You have to have 2 people who respect each other, 2 people who like working with each other, 2 people who have a unique and complementary skill sets.
if I were to put myself in your shoe, when one person leads a company to as much success as Netflix has reached, a lot of my validation will come from the chair, the position that I hold in that company at that point of time. Is it the sign of a great leader to be able to let go of your source of validation while you're getting your validation?
It's remarkable, right? I mean, no, Reed's not old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And he's like into sports and he's doing this, that, and the other.
and he set the company up better than he found it, and then he started it.
Yeah.
He was comfortable and confident. Much of his net worth is wrapped up in the stock, and so he has a lot of skin in the game, whether or not that we make this work or not.
Yeah.
And he was very clear. He goes, I don't want to come back.
The question I ask myself is, I'm 38 today.
Today's your birthday?
No.
Oh, okay.
38 now. This
I was
year.
gonna say, wow, you chose tonight to do your business. Okay.
No, I'm 38 now. And how much of a role does the little validation I have affect my overall mental well-being, and how much will go away if that were to be taken away? It's an interesting thought.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many people who identified themselves so much with the work.
Yeah.
Someone said something to me one time that they would be more embarrassed to fail at business than to fail in their marriage?
I think so, 100%.
For you, that's you? Yeah. That's not me, but I know a lot of people for whom that's true.
Yeah. All my validation comes from work. I don't have much else where I'm getting the very tangible societal validation coming my way. A lot of people talk about balance and talk about your life is fulfilled when you have A, B, C, D, E in equal.
That's a fantasy though, huh?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. There's never balance.
Nobody has that, right?
No.
People
Life is perpetually way out of balance.
People who say that are like, just saying that.
Yeah, I think or maybe it's just aspirational that they seek life-work balance, but there's no such thing.
Yeah.
It's an exercise in futility to try to chase it.
Yeah.
In fact, you're probably shortchanging one or the other all the time.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get that.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm letting someone down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's either your mother or your friend.
That phrase, that like life-work balance was designed to make you feel bad.
Yeah. Are you hard on yourself?
Yeah, very.
Yeah? In the work realm or in the family realm?
I think both. I probably it's my kids now are adults, so there's less of those kind of trade-offs that you make in business for family life. But I always felt very guilty about the trade-offs you make, even though you've convinced yourself, well, I worked this hard to provide for this family, so we could be this, so we could do this, so we could do that, and we could do this. But ultimately, there's probably they would have preferred the time.
What do they do, Ted?
My daughter is a film producer. Just produced a movie called Bunny that premiered at South by Southwest, and it's going to be at the Tribeca Film Festival next month. And my son is an film editor. So both in the business.
Any Indian editors, producers, actors that really stand out for you from the exposure you've had to India?
It's such a hard question because I just don't want people to say, well, what about me?
Can you name one individual, just one person, who has left a lasting impression on you in the entertainment industry in India?
Doing Haramonde, it was probably one of the most creatively interesting projects I've ever worked on in India. I was involved in the greenlight meetings for it. He came into to LA to do the pitch.
Who are you talking about? Sanjay Leela Bansal.
Yes. Yeah. He came in with this very big vision, and I think he almost like it was a dare. Like I dare you to make this. It's so big. And remember, he's a cinema legend. So the idea that he was going to make a TV show was almost unheard of. And I almost think he wasn't going to. I thought he came for us to say no. And then when we said yes, there was a long delay. There was a lot of delays. It was a complicated production. He did things, built these enormous practical sets that we shot on. It was something beautifully old-fashioned about every element of the production. And he was so proud of it, and I was so proud of him. And it was just such a great, that stands out to me as a real reflective of the Indian love of cinema.
Try.
Yeah.
This is, I think, chicken pulao. Pulao is like biryani, but slightly different.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is crazy spicy if you want to try
I
it.
could tell they put it only to you.
Do you want to try it? Can you take spice?
I'm going to wait. I'm going to push myself.
Yeah. So you've done some really spectacular green lighting of projects that nobody would have thought were reasonable. Things like Korean shows, Squid Games, Money Heist. There's so many in your list. I don't know where to begin and where to end. What is that skill set that allows you to make these choices that other people have not been able to make?
I think you have to remember a lot of the things, many things that we passed on go on to be hits somewhere else. So not like your track record's all that clean. Now remember, a lot of those shows are not didn't turn out to be the show that was being pitched either. So there's some of that goes on. But I think it's being able to be a little more daring about not being afraid to fail. The culture kind of instills that in us, to take big swings and not being afraid to fail, learn from the failures and move on. The other one is not being stuck in, this thing didn't work 10 years ago, so I'm never going to do that again. So I didn't have a lot of guardrails around the decision making that way. And I think some of it is that I talked about earlier about just general curiosity, and to have some good judge of character of the people who are pitching, whether or not they can actually do this thing that they're talking about. The Duffer Brothers, when they came in with Stranger Things, that's an example, I think, of a show that they have never done anything that big. They made a small movie for Warner Brothers before, and they directed some episodes of a TV show before. And so we're giving them this enormous budget to make this enormous scope show. And when you watch this little tiny movie that they made for Warner Brothers and said, oh, wow, if they can make this on that little tiny budget, we got this. So
if I want something to be greenlit by you, should I make like a demo tape? Is that the way?
Well, I probably won't do it. You'd probably go to one of the many other people on the team before we get to me. Yeah. But a lot of people do all kinds of pitches.
Monica in India, right?
Monica in India. But the way that people come in all the time is sometimes it's with a complete episode written. Sometimes it is just a pitch and a lookbook and storytelling. I love pitches. The one thing I miss the most in being the co-CEO now is I don't get to hear many of the pitches anymore. And I loved hearing pitches. I've seen some of the best pitches for some of the worst shows and some of the worst pitches for the best shows. So I'm always amazed that no one teaches anyone how to do great pitches. There should be a whole college course on just pitches. Because I mean, that's the make or break thing when you walk into a room. And I've seen people walk in a room with a great show and just read it off the page to you while you're like sitting like this and they're just reading to you. So.
If I had to pick one thing over another, say I'm going to pitch to Monica, and hopefully
she's tough.
Would I do better with a lookbook, a script for an episode, or a demo 3-minute video of the look and feel of the show?
I bet with Monica you do better with a script.
Yeah.
I think she wants to know that you're committed and that you're going to deliver and that you're in.
Right.
I'm guessing for you and her now. This is delicious.
You like it? Are you a rice fan? Do you like rice?
Yeah, definitely.
As a carbohydrate? Yeah. So picking a microculture like the Korean stuff, before it has blown up and making it mass, how do I learn to do that? Say, for example, I have to make the decision on producing or not producing A, B, C, and D. Somebody comes to me with a Korean drama 5 years ago and says, we should do something like this. I'd be like, heck no. What skill set do you have that allowed you to make that call, and how can I inculcate it?
I think it goes back to the video store. The beauty part of working in a video store, they were empty all day. All the business happened after work. So all day, I watched everything. I watched everything in the store. So one thing that I have that some people don't is I've seen almost everything. So when someone comes in with an idea or a pitch, I already have some framework where I've seen it before, where it's worked, what didn't work about it, not just in American film. So when we did in Korea before Parasite, we made Bong Joon-ho's movie called Okja. And I was very familiar with his work. I've seen all of his film before. And he was, I remember that where he was in his life at that time. He told me a story that there was a box set of Korean movies on DVD that Martin Scorsese did the director's commentary on. And then he's talking about movies in Korea, and Bong said, and Martin Scorsese said my name. He got very excited to tell me that Martin Scorsese said his name. And I said, have you never met Martin Scorsese? He goes, no. So I introduced them and had set it up so that Bong could go to his home, and they went and spent the day together, and it was really exciting. But again, I think when Bong was out pitching that movie, a lot of people did not know him and his work outside of Korea. He was an incredible an incredibly well-known director, particularly in Korean horror. But again, you gotta have some frame of reference. So
Does familiarity play a part in that? You've seen something similar which has worked, so you will greenlight something similar?
I think it's just, Martin Scorsese said that all movies are in conversation with each other. So you have to watch a lot of movies to understand what the connection is. This is like that, but it's not really like that. It's this, but it could be a little more like this. But that will never work in India, but it works well in Korea. Those kind of things.
And what does well or does not? Is it a factor of reading the room, like reading what is happening in society today, or is it about the quality of content? Like we're in a world where, I don't know, left is going right and the politics are changing, capitalism and the way we view it is changing. So much is changing.
Yeah.
Youth sentiment on social media is changing. Does that define what will work or not tomorrow, or will it be the quality of content?
The reason it's so hard to predict is because sometimes it changes because of what's happening in the culture, and sometimes the exact opposite. Meaning that because things are so because things are so black, people really want white now. Or because everything's black, everything must be black. So I do think that there's a almost impossible to predict nature of how society will react to what's happening in society far enough in advance to get something made.
Another thing that is big for Netflix is DEI. You have people of different race, religion, spread across ethnicity, spread across different parts of Netflix, from greenlighting to leading different roles and all of that. Is it working? Is like the popular narrative as an outsider sitting in India, when I hear about what is happening in America, everyone's talking about, DI having caused the issue in some college and how it's not necessarily the best thing for business. Is DI in Netflix helping Netflix produce better content and be a better streamer?
Well, look, we're telling stories for 700 million people around the world. We need the people who are picking them, to people who are making them, people who are promoting them, to be a lot like the audience that they're serving. So that diversity very much plays into our success. So I don't believe that there's any conflict with getting the best person and having a diverse workforce.
For a long time, you sat on the very top end of Indian streaming. By top end, I mean you cater to the, not completely, but to the English niche audience. And you were the most expensive of services. Off late, you're getting very popular shows like Kapil Sharma, and I heard something about CID. These are more domestic language talk shows in a way. Can you be both? Can you sit on that end and on this end?
I mean, that's the beauty of the personalization work that we've been doing since the company began, is we're not doing those shows instead of doing these other shows. We're doing those in addition to them. So that if you like these kind of shows, then that's what you'll see on Netflix. And if you don't, you'll see other things. So we're broadening the offering, not narrowing it to something else.
What is working, like all the data you have on India now, which is significant in all the time that you've been here? Can you tell me some non-obvious insights you have learned that I won't know?
I'm sure that you would probably be the international performance of programming, from Japanese anime to Turkish soaps to all kinds of different things that you would not expect would work very well in India. Work very well in India.
Why is that? We don't speak the language.
I think for some reason, and you probably understand better than I do, the audience is very hungry for diverse storytelling from around the world. They love Bollywood. They love South Indian action movies. They love all local content for sure, but far more adventurous as viewers than I expected.
Could it go back to the projection lens that people want to show you what they're watching, so that they can speak about the fact that they watched a Korean show?
I don't know. Maybe to each other, but I don't think so. I think it's what they like. They would turn it off. They'd give it, you know what I mean? They would just hit play for a minute and turn it off. But honestly, they're watching and loving content from around the world.
Uh, I watched this interview of yours where the journalist was telling you you're killing Hollywood and you were talking about how you're saving Hollywood.
Yeah.
Explain. You might be saving.
I can't explain why he said you're killing, but yeah. I think saving is look at what we're doing. I mean, we're continuing to be able to create an environment where we can get films made and TV shows made, and doing it in a way that I think what I think is killing Hollywood is where people are forgetting the audience, and for us, it's like we're obsessed on the audience and serving them how they want, the way they want, the content they want, the programming they want, and doing it really well. And that's and the numbers speak for themselves where people are what they're doing and what they're not doing. And so I think we're onto the right track by listening to customers, like listening to the audience.
What do you think happens next in the podcasting world, the independent content creators who are not sitting behind any organization?
Yeah.
How does that world evolve? Does Netflix start competing there?
Look, I think the more podcasts become video forward, and people are watching on TV, which they are doing more and more frequently, it's very likely that a lot of those could end up on Netflix. Not all of them, but I do think but there's a place on Netflix for them, and where we could monetize better than it being out everywhere else where you find podcasts, because we have a big enough distribution platform to bring most of the audience to you the same way. So possibly we're looking at all of them. So I'd say the breadth of places that we're looking for new storytelling and new creators is bigger than it used to be. It's not just film school. It's not just a film festival. A lot of times it's YouTube and TikTok and Instagram.
Are they eating up a lot of the mind share that used to go to fiction?
No, I don't know what they're trading off for. So like we're not dropping and they're growing. It could be that they're just accelerating the decline of linear television, which wouldn't be a bad thing for us. But I do think what people are using the TV for is very interesting, how evolved it just in the last couple of years.
A lot of people tell me, Ted, that the youth have no patience. They're dead scrolling all the time, and their ability to do one thing for a prolonged duration is limited. But then I know many, many young people who are watching 10 hours of a Netflix show without a break, or maybe 15 or 20 hours.
Yeah.
So who's right?
I have not given up on the attention span of youth. When Squid Game drops, they're going to stop everything they're doing and watch Squid Game in 2 days.
Yeah. So is it increasing or decreasing?
I think you've got to entertain them. We have to be more entertaining than dead scrolling. Binging, you have to out binge dead scrolling.
Dead scrolling is like short-term spurts of dopamine, right?
Yeah.
What chemical is Netflix catering to when you're watching a 10-hour show?
I think if our common references as a culture are memes, that's depressing. They're throwaway. You know what I mean? You wouldn't know. People of a certain age won't even know the things that you and I were talking about tonight. So I feel like what's great about it is that we're getting into their soul, getting into their heart, getting into their, into their own experience. The way that you think about a movie that you grew up with. The way I remember seeing Jaws at 10 years old in the movie theater, people screaming, popcorn flying in the air. That's part of who I am. And that's what we're tapping into that.
You have an interesting marketing strategy where you produce content to market content. Does that work?
You mean producing like a podcast to promote a show? Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Why does that work? Versus, say, a billboard or a hoarding, or
I think it works in conjunction with all those things. It does not in place of. So you have to have a lot of touch points to get in the culture these days. There's a lot of things competing for your attention. So sometimes if you're really deep in, you're a big podcast listener or watcher, and and you're also a true crime lover, that true crime podcast about the show upcoming, it's a natural.
Right. And that works. So if I made content, if I produced a 10-part, 1-hour series about something, let's say about the financial markets, what would my go-to strategy be? Say I've met Monica and you guys have greenlit it, you're paid for me to produce it, everything is done. I need to create a buzz about it because it's coming on Netflix's homepage tomorrow.
Yeah.
where would I go? Like, would it
But
be?
luckily, you have a great following of entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And so if you make a show like that and it doesn't appeal to your base, it's doomed.
Yeah.
So you can go
No,
out.
I mean, not for me specifically.
No,
but
say someone like you go out to your base.
Yeah.
If it's huge or if it's even small, and then have that echo and get larger and larger.
do you think any competition could come for YouTube, Instagram, Twitter? I know each of them do different things, but are you seeing something that I have not seen in terms of competition for any
They
of
all
them?
have these things. All have life cycles.
Yeah.
You know, remember MySpace?
Yeah. Any that you think is nearing the end of their life cycle?
That I can't call. That I can't call.
No?
The global critical mass that exists today for TikTok, for Instagram, for YouTube is pretty tough. Pretty tough to challenge.
Gaming. We didn't speak about this. You're planning to bring in a lot of gaming in OTT. Yeah. Can you elaborate? How will that work?
Yeah.
Because a TV remote is a very inconvenient way to play a game.
Yeah. So a lot of it was coming in where you could just play on your mobile
Right.
as part of your subscription. And then now we're optimizing some of the games for TV as well, including multiplayer party games and those kind of things too. So it's basically meant to be, like you've asked earlier about, does games compete with Netflix? Sometimes, and it competes for time and energy and screen time. So when we want to be part of that with those people who love gaming.
And this wouldn't be large AAA games. They would be like the light.
A little bit of both. I mean, we've licensed a lot of large AAA games that are in the program now. The Grand Theft Auto games, by way of example, they do very, very well. And then there's other like mostly like games for younger people, puzzle games, all kinds of games. Just like Netflix itself, with the way we have documentary and film and television, foreign language.
Yeah. I don't have any questions per se, Ted. Any fleeting thoughts, like anything you'd like to say? If you were to presume for a second that you're talking to a 20-year-old Indian boy or girl who wants to start a business in media, content, anything you'd like to say to them?
I think that young people, you said they're short attention span. I do think they're impatient. And I do think that a lot of media jobs, particularly, if you're going to start a media business, to be very successful, you're going to want to know how to do everything that everyone's doing. And the best way to do that is to start at the bottom, put in the time and work on a company, be a production assistant on a film, go get coffee for a writer's room, all those kind of things that you didn't think you wanted to do. Yeah. But if you want to run a business in this part, you're going to have to learn how all those things operate and how all those people work if you want to be successful. And the best way to do it is to do it. And this is the beauty of being young, is you put in a little bit of time and figure out, as soon as you learn what you need to learn, as soon as you find that this part may be, by the way, you may discover the avenue that you've really been looking for all along by spending that time in the writer's room or on set or in post-production or the VFX house as an assistant, where you have opportunity to learn and be mentored. So I would say, don't be impatient. Take your time, learn the roles, learn the jobs, learn the people who do those jobs, and see if that's really what you want to do.
Any fleeting words for India in your very short visit here?
Every time, I'd say for 10 years, I've heard that India is 2 years away.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's never been more true right now. I mean, it just feels like India's on a precipice of something very big. And this is probably the most exciting time that I've been aware of in India's history.
Done.
All right.
Thank you.
Good time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Shah Rukh directs movies as well? Oh, you're talking about The Sun.
Sun.
Oh, you guys bought the show.
Yeah.
You're producing it, aren't you?
Bollywood, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very fun. I've watched the first two episodes so far.
What do you think of it?
It's very funny. It's kind of like, I think people in India and people outside of India know nothing about the inner workings of Bollywood. So it's a really fun world.
Yeah, no, sweet guy. I really like it.
He's a good director. He's a very good director.
Yeah.
Yeah.